Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Vanessa and I'm an indie author from Toronto, Canada, and I publish under the pen name A.N. Sage. I write mystery, fantasy, and I am obsessed with anything magic. I also am obsessed with anything stationary. So if you're new to this channel, you can expect to see not just writing videos, entrepreneurship, creative entrepreneurship videos, but also a heck of a lot of planners because I love them and who doesn't? We have a fun video today. I don't know if you are aware, but if you're not, I have just launched a book coaching and book editing side to my business. I have worked as a coach and a help instructor of sorts for a few indie authors already, so I knew that this was going to be slowly the progression that I was going to take. And I am a certified technical writer, so I've just taken a few more editing courses to kind of get that aspect of my business in order. And I have finally announced the business and opened the doors to it at the beginning of this year. So actually just last week, if you're watching this. I am currently booking for February and I am keeping my rates very, very reasonable and on the low side compared to industry standards. Just because I know that as an indie author or any author really, prices for things that you need, services that you need to publish your books can really add up. So anything I can do to help while still getting obviously paid for my time, I will do it. And so I'm trying to keep my rates very low, but also because I have just started the business. And so if you are going to look for a new editor, if you're looking for one, this is a good time to kind of jump on board because my rates are low right now. I am currently booking for February, so make sure that you contact me or take a look at the website. I will post it in the notes. But because of this whole other side of the business, I wanted to talk about editing today, specifically self-editing, because whether or not you are working with an editor, which I always recommend that you do, but I understand that not everybody can afford that, and some people wait until the book makes money and then pull it and get it edited, and there's no right or wrong way. I mean, I would suggest that you try to get it edited, but if you can't, completely understandable. So you do what suits you best. But if you are going to work with an editor, or if you're not, you will always still have to self-edit. And if you're not an editor, editing can seem daunting, and it can be a headache. Because if you're unsure of what to do, you might just think that, hey, I'm going to reread the story, but then you're not sure what to look for. So I wanted to give you a few helpful tips on editing and doing self-edits before you move on to the next phase, which is working with an editor. Now, I did write a blog about this, and it's on my coaching and editing site. I do have a blog there. So if you're looking for other bits and pieces to get information from me about writing, about book coaching, development of books and things like that, anything on the craft really, then I will be uploading to that blog very, very frequently. So check that out. So I did post a blog about this, and I thought, hey, what a great opportunity to also share some of that knowledge with everybody here in this wonderful community that we have. So let's jump into the tips. And I have something really fun at the end of this video for you. So stick around so you can kind of see some of this fun little surprise kind of reveal that I have. So the first thing that you want to do when you're self-editing, so you sit down to edit, and you're rereading line by line, you're going through, because line editing is very important when you self-edit, but you're going line by line through your story and you're taking a look at your draft. The first thing is the big picture. So you really want to do your edits for plot and story. You want to go through your plot and make sure everything is cohesive, that there's no plot holes, and that the story flows, makes sense. You want to take a look at if there's any holes, that you fix them. If there's unanswered questions towards the end of the book, that you answer them. So bigger picture type of edits. It's really important to get this part right because it kind of sets up where you go next in your editing. So you're starting big picture and you're kind of narrowing yourself down. That's why line editing, it takes longer and it's always a very pricey edit to work with someone on because it takes so much. Like you literally going through the entire story and figuring it out. So you're doing almost developmental editing first. And then you're going line by line and fixing it for grammar and things like that. But the initial big picture stuff, which is closer to developmental edits than it would be line editing, is the plot and the story. So when you're working with a developmental editor, they're going to take a look at this. And that's something you're going to do for yourself when you're self-editing. From there, you're going to move on to your character development. So you're going to look at all your characters, not just your main character. You want to take a look at your secondary characters too. So first, you want to look at your main character's arc and make sure it makes sense, that it corresponds to the plot and the story that you have just edited. But then you also want to take a look at your secondary characters. Anybody that's written about with more than just a mention, you might want to take a look at their arcs as well, or at least how developed they are. If any character reads as two-dimensional, make note of it and fix it. So you're editing your characters right now. You're adding meat to their bones, and it's very important that you get through this part, because your characters are going to be what connects your reader to your story. So make sure you are going through every single character, and if there's a character that you find, and this is very tough, and I have a hard time doing this too, but if you're reading and you find a character that lends nothing to the story and lends nothing to your main character, so they don't help develop your main character in any way, and they don't really make sense for the story at all, you're gonna have to cut them. I know, but they gotta go, because there's no point. There is no point wasting words, wasting paper, wasting time on a page on a character that doesn't progress neither your story or your main character. Your next part of self-edits, when you get through the first big picture things, the next, I guess, medium picture thing is your pacing. So you want to make sure that the pacing of your story is not at a flat line, right? You have to have your ebbs and flows, and you have to make sure that the pacing makes sense. So if you're writing fight scenes, make sure that the pacing in that is bam, 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 right? If you're writing a thriller and you're at a point where something is about to happen and you want your reader on edge, pacing, bam, 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 right? If you're writing descriptive parts, parts where you have kind of inner monologue, a character is slowing down, your plot is slowing down, make sure the pacing is slow, your sentences are a bit longer. You're going through and you're mentioning things that you normally wouldn't in a fight scene. For example, if you have a character in the middle of an epic battle in a fantasy, chances are they're not gonna stop and think about the color of the roses on the side of the road or whatever. So you want to think about pacing. You want to make sure that the pacing makes sense to the part of the story you're in, and you also want to make sure that the pacing has the kind of effect on the reader that you want it to have. So if you have chapters where you need your reader relaxed, then you need slower pacing. If you have chapters where you need your reader on edge, you need faster pacing. So pacing is kind of the next step of self-edits. And normally when I say next step is because chances are you're going to be rereading your manuscript many times. I usually reread my manuscript at least 3 times, minimum. And that's because I reread it with all these different parts of the self-edit in mind. You can combine some of them, you can probably combine plot, story, and character development, and then do a separate kind of reread for pacing, and the next parts that I'm going to mention. But you're going to have different portions of your edits and different manuscripts saved. Make sure you're saving all your work separately. That's another little side tip, because you don't want to edit directly onto your first draft, just in case you decide to go a different direction and now you've lost everything that you've done in your first draft. So just separate your drafts according to the edits you're doing. So when you're done with pacing, you're moving on to more of the nitty-gritty stuff. You're moving on to grammar. Now, when I am talking about grammar, I am not just talking about punctuations or where the commas go, or if you should use a hyphen or the em dash that we know a lot of people like to use. I am talking about line edits. This is where line edits come in. So you want to go through and take a look at every line and make sure that it makes sense, not just grammatically. I know I said grammar, but not just grammatically, but that it's strong enough. So every line should have a purpose. And if you think of a better way to phrase something, or if something doesn't make sense, go through it and figure that out line by line. And while you're doing it line by line, you also want to take a look at the grammar. So this is something you can actually do yourself. It's almost like the proofreading part of edits. So if you're not sure about how the scope of edits work, the kind of the umbrella, your first round usually is a developmental edit. It doesn't mean you have to get all of these. I'm just kind of explaining like what goes after what. So your developmental edit is the first one, the first part. Then you're going into line edits, because all of this changes your story, right? It changes the manuscript and how it's written. Then you're going into copy edits, which is grammar, basically. It's like, it's not line by line, but it's kind of line by line. So you're going to copy edits next. And then after copy edits, you are going into proofreading. So those are kind of like the steps that an editor would take when you work with them. And there's different editors who do different things and some editors who do everything. I, for example, can do all the different stages. Some editors like to concentrate more on one than the other, and a lot of them will do all of these. So you're going through grammar, you're going through line edits, you're doing all your line, copy edits, and proofreading all in kind of one go, because as a self-edit, it's easier to just collect them all into this one thing and just do a full read-through, very detailed read-through of your manuscript. And then when you're done with that, you're going to go through and look for repetition. So repetitive phrases, repetitive words, and overused words. We all have crutch words. For me, it's the word just, it's the word that. These are all words. So is a big one for me. These are all words that I know I overuse constantly. They're very repetitive, and more often than not, they are not needed. And so I will go through my manuscript and I will remove all of the repetitive words and replace them with stronger words, words that make more sense, or just cut them all together. The same for phrases, right? I'll go through first chapter by chapter and remove repetitive phrases, and then I'll go through the whole manuscript, because just because you repeated something 3 times in a chapter doesn't mean you didn't also repeat it like 5 more times throughout your manuscript. So make sure when you're looking for repetitive phrases that you're looking within the chapter and then within the manuscript as a whole. So that's repetition. When you're done with that, you've got a pretty clean manuscript on your hands. You can now hand that off to an editor, and I can guarantee you that whatever you found, your editor is going to find even more. So depending on what type of edits you are getting done next, your editor will find more things to alter, because they're looking at it from an editor's point of view. When you're self-editing, you're still editing as the author of this book. And so it's going to be very different. I, for example, being an editor, still hire an editor for all of my books. Yes, I could do it myself. And yes, I have done it myself for some of them. For A Grave Rose, for example, my editor was not available and wouldn't be available for a while. I have had some really bad experiences trying out new editors very close to a deadline, and so I went ahead and I edited that one myself. However, all my other books prior to this were all edited by someone else, because someone else will catch things that you want. Since you've become so used to seeing words on your manuscript, you know exactly what to expect, and sometimes you kind of gloss over things. But one little trick that I have for you, and this is kind of like a bonus tip, you can listen to your story. So run your story through a text-to-speech program, any kind of program. I believe Word has it. Definitely Google Docs should have it. And there's other programs that you can actually, like apps that you can pay and buy and whatever. And load your manuscript in and listen to it, just like you would an audiobook. It will be weird. It will be stunted. It will be an AI voice, unlike any AI voice you've ever heard, but it will be different from reading, right? And so you'll be able to catch things that you normally wouldn't if you were just looking at the manuscript or words printed on the page. So all of those things that you kind of have glossed over because you've just seen them so many times, or just because your eyes are just used to a different way of reading, you'll be able to hear it now. You'll be able to catch nuances in dialogue that are strange. You'll be able to find grammatical mistakes. You'll be able to find plot holes even, weird character moves. So things you normally wouldn't expect. If you listen to your story, it really, really helps a lot. More often than not, after I'm done going through and editing all of my stories, I'll listen to it at least one time, sometimes twice. I'll put it on while I'm like driving around, while I'm getting errands done, while I'm taking my baby for a walk, just like I would an audiobook or a podcast. And then I'll make notes, like I will use the voice app or I'll write a text to myself or something, and I'll make notes on the edits that I want to make later. And then when I get back, I make those edits in the manuscript. So those are kind of my tips for self-editing. Again, like I mentioned, whether you're going to be working with an editor or not, it is always very important to self-edit before you hand in a manuscript to anybody, and especially before you publish if you're not going the editor route. So the surprise. Something very cool came in the mail this week. And it is just in time for the launch. So you know how I mentioned A Grave Rose just a second ago. This is my latest release. It is coming out January 23rd. And oh my God, you guys, check out this paperback. Oh, upside down. I am like really terrible at trying to get this, but look at this. And then the back. So again, the front. And it's, how many pages did it end up? Let me tell you. It ended up being 375 pages. And that includes a recipe. There's a special recipe in the back. I don't know if you can kind of see. Maybe I'll move back a little. But let me show you the chapter headers. These were probably like my favorite parts. So the chapter headers are coffee stains, because the whole thing takes place in a coffee shop. And then look at this title page. It's also totally stained with coffee. So I did design this myself. I'm also a cover designer. I do a lot of stuff in publishing, but I am a cover designer. I designed this myself. If you're looking for fantasy, cozy mystery, or pretty much any genre I can work with, except I don't do like hand illustrations. I illustrate a lot, but I just don't do full illustrated covers. But these are the paperbacks. They're so cool. I had to share them. I'm so excited. I couldn't. This is just in time because I am going to be giving away some signed copies, and stay tuned for news. I'm going to post it in the communities because next week we actually won't be having a regular video that comes out like this, because I'm actually going to be doing a live here on YouTube, and it's going to be in the evening so that everybody can join, and also so that, you know, I can get my husband to watch my baby or put her to sleep a bit earlier so we can do this. But it's going to be in the evening, so when everybody's home. But we're going to do a live. There's going to be like a ton of giveaways during the live. If you have any questions that you want me to answer about the book, about writing, about anything, but if you want me to answer any questions during this live, you're going to be there, make sure that you comment on this video below, or you can comment on the post that I'll put up in the community later during next week. So we are going to have on the 23rd of January a big live kind of release party. I'm super excited. I'll probably be having wine while we do this to really celebrate. But this is one of the biggest releases I've done in a while. It's going amazingly well. I'm super excited. The ARCs for the book are already closed, but I think there's still a couple that you can grab from Booksprout if you're on there. I know there was a couple that were uploaded to that, and there's still a few slots left as of me filming this on Friday. So you'll be seeing this video on Sunday, but there should be a couple more if you didn't get on the ARC team, if you want to grab it there. But honestly, I can't wait. So I hope to see you guys there during the live. Sorry, I keep looking over there, but we have a window and there's a fox. It's like super snowing right now here. And there's like a little fox just kind of running around. So cute. Anyways, I do want to have a fox in one of these cozy mysteries. So maybe I'll use that little guy as inspiration. I digress. I hope to see you guys during the live. Make sure you post your questions for what you want me to answer during that live below. Don't forget to show up because there's going to be, like I said, a ton of super fun giveaways. I've been planning them for months, so we've got some really cool ones. There will be signed copies being given away with a whole bunch of swag. So I hope to see you there. I also hope you enjoyed this video on editing. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end if you did. And if you have subscribed, thank you again for joining our community here. I hope you stay magical and I will see you next week. Bye.